Welcome, listeners. Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights, here with Drew Herndon. Let me get that Podagraph. Looking forward to this. But before we get to Drew, I got sponsors. Top Panini and Upper Deck, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, and Huggins and Scott Auctions. Great sponsors. Patronize them. You got nothing better to do. We're all stuck here with COVID-19, shelter in place. But Drew and I are podcasters, so we always have something to be working on. Welcome to the show, Drew. Tell us about your hobby journey and how you came to this prestigious position of one of the leading podcasters in the industry with Lemme at Podagraph.
Well, first, thank you so much, Jim, for having me on, and loved having you on Hobby Hotline a couple of weeks ago.
That was
great.
Fun.
Yeah, but I think I have a pretty similar story as the most, at least in terms of a hobby background. I grew up as a kid. I was obsessed. I'm in my mid-30s, so I was a kid right there in the, if you want to call it the junk wax era, whatever you want to claim it. I was there.
I call it the era of maximum card availability.
Yes, much better. I like that much better. So during the maximum era of card availability was when I really got into collecting originally. I think like most kids, collecting with your dad, going to those shows and stuff. I was a big hockey collector then, huge hockey collector. I grew up playing hockey, so it's a big thing for me. But I collected that more than anything. And then, like most people, took a little time off once that all died down. And then I'd say probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I guess, when I kind of settled down from the crazy college after college life and everything. I don't really remember exactly what it was. I think it might have even been just finding some old cards and being like, I'd kind of like to see what the hobby's like these days. And I remember actually going and buying the first Walmart blaster in a while that I'd got, I think, since I'd ever gotten from Walmart. Opened up. You
actually remember that moment?
Yes. I remember the day in Walmart. I remember the first blaster box I opened was I think it was like Press Pass, I think maybe his last year, and it was a HaHa Clinton Dix auto out of 10. Like, I remember what was in it and everything. And from there, it snowballed. I was hooked again. I didn't even realize at that time that an autograph numbered out of 10 meant anything because I'd been out for so long. But I'm somebody who has a pretty extent. If I go into anything, I like to research it heavily. And so I dove right back in pretty much 100% after that day, and never really looked back since.
Were you interested more in the cards of your youth, or were you going more toward what's the latest and greatest?
Well, luckily, I actually saved most of my cards from the childhood, so I still had a lot of those. Got rid of some stuff I wish I hadn't had, but as when I got into it, I started looking into it, the hobby had changed so much in the 10, 15 years that I had been out of it, that when I got back into it, I was so intrigued by what the market was 5 years ago, because it looked like it was starting to make this slow turn. I didn't know if it would ever last because I hadn't been in the hobby for so long, but I saw something even 5 years ago. You could kind of see like, well, this is really starting to turn around and go somewhere. And so I was really hooked on the new stuff. When I was collecting before, autographs were around, I think, in like Be a Player Hockey and a couple other things in like the late 90s, but that really was about it. And so just getting into the new hobby, getting into everything that they had going on, it was instantly, I was just hooked 100% on the new stuff.
Well, what was your main gig? Is card collecting kind of a side gig for you, or what? Do you have a main gig? I mean, what do you do vocationally?
Sure. Well, I graduated. I studied media relations and journalism at East Carolina, and graduated with degrees in both, and had been working. I'd worked for various sports papers as a writer. I'd always been in the industry in some way, shape, or form, in journalism in some way. And that, I don't know. I just kind of started wanting to follow it much, much more, like every single week. I mean, I was hooked instantly again. Whether it was thoughts from childhood coming back, I don't really remember what it was, but whatever it was, I just found myself saying like, this is so different from when I left, but I don't know. I felt like something was coming.
It's a dynamic now in a different way. That wasn't. The pack hits, potential pack hits, are so much more dramatic, I think, now than they would have been when you were a kid or when I was a kid. I mean, it was only just what player did you get.
And so, like when I started, I was actually working for Lowe's corporate offices here in North Carolina, and soon after my son was born, and things happened down the line, I ended up having full custody and being a single dad. So we went from working at Lowe's 40 hours a week to working at home. And that's kind of where looking into the podcasting and stuff would come into play. But I was really looking for, I just saw so many ways about 4 or 5 years ago to get into the online aspect of content creation, that once I kind of forced to leave Lowe's in the sense of I couldn't really just deal with that with my life at the moment. It provided a good opportunity to take a chance at something that I was knowledgeable about, something that I cared about, and do something that I love. And then I saw my son starting to get interested in it, even at the age of 2, wanting to see what daddy was looking at, not trying to grab him and bend him, but just being mesmerized by the stuff. And I think that was also a big reason that I was all in on it.
So you seem like you're well prepared for the shelter in place that we have now.
Yeah, I mean, it's
more of a freelance. Are you doing freelance writing, or what are you?
I'm doing now. I'm doing some writing for. We have a couple of websites that we run ourselves. One of the bigger ones being hobbyroundup.com.
Okay.
I also do some work with Leighton and those guys at Vintage Breaks, do some writing and some work on their live shows as kind of like a guest host. So I've been able to take the podcast and move it into a couple of different areas and kind of branch out and do what I always wanted to do, which I didn't want to limit myself to just do it, like having to do just a podcast. I'm always somebody where the more I can do, I mean, I'll write until I just fall asleep in bed.
Okay. Well, so you think you're more of a writer or a talker?
I guess now a little bit of both. I think
when I originally was thinking about this, I thought, well, I really enjoy writing, but it takes a lot longer. And I appreciate the skill and craft that you have from your education experience. I've done a lot of writing, but it takes a lot longer. And the talking, you just wake up in the morning, you turn on the microphone, and but again, I think there is a real place in the industry for people that can write effectively. And
well, I think it also helps a little bit with the podcast because, like, I mean, I don't do a lot of notes per se. I'll do my little writing short form of, hey, hit this, and then that's really about it. And at the beginning, it was difficult. If you listen to some of the first shows, you can probably hear the writer as opposed to the podcaster, But being 3 years in now, I think it's really done a good job of blending itself together. And I think the two really go hand in hand if you can separate it from just being I'm reading a script.
Yeah, some of the first episodes I did, I went that direction. I tried to write out what I was going to say, and I didn't like the way. I'm just not that good. I just can't. Yeah,
I mean, even if you do it comes off forced. I think I think a lot of people nowadays, people aren't fooled by what a podcast is. They're not expecting it to be CNN or MSNBC, whatever you want to choose. I think they look at it as a more relaxed form of media where they can get what they want to do, and so I think it really lends to that, honestly.
Okay, so is this the best it's ever been? I mean, notwithstanding the COVID-19 stuff, but I mean, are you really? I mean, it seems like your podcast continues to blossom, and I think you come out like every 2 weeks or something. You don't?
Yeah, we're going to be
Roughing the Passer and
yes,
Hobby Hotline. You got your hands in a lot of things, but Let Me Get That Podagraph is like every 2 weeks and an hour or so. Do you consciously try to?
Well, at the beginning, when we started the show, my former co-host Stu and I, we really wanted to focus on shorter episodes at the beginning, really get the stuff out there, get it out, and we're done. But when we started it 3 years ago, I mean, you can remember this, there wasn't news every week. There wasn't a constant news cycle. There was, but it wasn't what it became in the 3 years since, as to where now, I mean, I'm literally writing out topics and okay, I got to push this, and this till the next episode. There's just so much now compared to what it was then that I wanted to make the episodes a little bit longer. And so I settled after it was just me to go into an hour, extending the interviews a little bit more. A couple people, a lot of fans were talking about, they liked the segment on the show. So we, made that one a little longer, expanded on it. I really take feedback from listeners incredibly serious, big time. And I love to test their ideas. And so, it's evolved into about hour and 15 minutes or so an episode, and we're going to be getting back to once a week here in the next couple of weeks. It's been hectic with getting Roughing the Passer and some family stuff up, and also with everything with Stu in the past year, we took some time off too. It kind of got off of the every single week like we wanted, but life gets in the way sometimes. But we'll be back to every single week here in the next couple of weeks.
We're kind of out of time, but that's probably a note to end on for this episode. I'll need to get you back, Drew, to talk about some other stuff because I think we've got more to talk about than just one episode worth. But one of the things I've really enjoyed, one of the things that's been unexpected pleasure is the camaraderie of the podcasters out there that are all trying to find a different niche. And I love the way you're collaborating with John and others to find other new niches. But one of the things, and I don't think I knew Stu, but I've really, it's again, this is melancholy, but also positive, is that doing the tribute episodes that I've done to dearly departed, close friends and other industry people that really made a contribution. And I don't want them to be forgotten. Stu would be one of those guys, but every couple of weeks I'll try to throw in somebody most are older guys, but they're guys I knew in many cases, and they deserve to be remembered. So Stu does too. And, I'm glad you're carrying on the work. So thanks, listeners. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Drew and me. And we'll be back he'll be back on his podcast any day now. And I'll be back tomorrow with another short episode. So thanks again. Thanks, Drew. Be back tomorrow.
See ya.